George. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Glad you could come again today, this week.
It's been a busy week.
How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. A little stressful here and there, but trying to deal with that stress.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, I understand that. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe some of the things that happened this week that stressed you out?
Well, it's been very busy at the store, and it always comes, in spurts.
Exactly.
You'll get busy, and then like my daughter,
Mhm.
it never fails. When things are going wide open, and we're inundated with customers and paperwork. She's got to do something, out of the norm
Right.
to get attention. I think I'm not sure, but it just her timing is always terrible, or it's intentional. One or the other.
Right.
But,
So do
with
you
being
feel?
busy and working through a little bit of that anxiety, she makes life a challenge.
I understand. Now, do you feel like it's an intentional thing? Is that what I was hearing you say?
You would. I'm biased. I'd like to think it wasn't, but at times, I feel like it's just her way of getting attention.
Right.
Not that she lacks for attention, but or just her demeanor.
Right.
It's just, or it's her bad luck. One of the three.
Right.
She always seems to add more chaos to an already chaotic situation.
How does that make you feel towards her when things are going that way?
Well, they're your children,
Right.
but there's a fine line between patience and acceptance.
Right.
So I'm a little probably on the less acceptable side. It's not acceptable.
Well, I remember that you mentioned in our last session that you felt like she manipulated the situation a lot as far as you were concerned.
She's a drama queen. She definitely can manipulate any situation. Very manipulative.
And how do you respond to that manipulation typically? What's your typical response?
I've got enough calluses about it that it doesn't work well. I read the lines. It's not harder than her.
But I remember you saying last session that it does induce stress as far
It
as,
Yeah,
even though.
when you're busy and I work for myself, so every day's like starting over.
Right.
And it doesn't. You can tell yourself you're dealing with it and all that, but it definitely has an effect on you.
Right.
I'm in sales, so I can't carry it around with me. I have to just let it go
Right.
for the moment and deal with it when it's appropriately.
Well, it sounds like you have a good handle on what you really need to do. I know that
Who
one of
knows?
one of the concerns that we addressed just real briefly at the very end of our first session last time was that you were having kind of an anxiety attack, high blood pressure feeling when these situations were happening with her, and you were wanting to really try to find out how to make that go away and how to make that stop, or how to have a better control over the situation with her. So that's one of the things that we're going to, in our long-range goal planning, we're going to try to work on that to help you find some better ways, maybe, us work together for us to find some better ways for you to deal with her, to shut down that experience before it ever starts to take fruition. So anyway, that's just something that we'll talk about a little later on, but I wanted to throw that in there because I know that you sound like you even after the first week you kind of come to grips with what needs to be done.
You have to let it go for the moment. Get your balance a little bit.
Okay, so how's everything going? I know we talked a lot about your daughter earlier in the session. How's everything going as far as the other goals we talked about real briefly at the end of the last
Oh,
session?
the stop smoking.
How's that, how's that going?
It could be better.
Yeah, how did you feel about it? Did you kind of stop and think about it this week, just because we talked about it real briefly?
Yeah, and just there's different, I mean, it's probably better for me to start, like trying to set goals and stuff at the beginning of the month.
Right.
Because the end of the month's always, trying to, close out all your business for the month and being in sales, most of it comes in waves and
Right.
it's either the 15th through the 30th or the 1st through the 10th or, so I guess I'm doing okay. Haven't managed that yet, but
During that personal stress.
controlling the people that I keep around me has helped a lot.
That's
The
good.
people that key people that socially and there's always less stress
Right.
when you put yourself in a group where there's less drama. So it's working out. Sure.
That's
it is.
good, that's good.
Good advice.
Well, and it's just something that I know that we talked about and you felt like was a great thing to do. So
Yeah.
that's something we're collaborating together. So if you ever have any suggestions or anything like that about something you'd like to try to help facilitate things, that's completely okay with me. Another thing that we will do for our next session is I'd like for you to maybe take notes during the week, just a couple of little blurbs. It doesn't have to be a big journal or anything, about certain times in the situation that occurs that's happening with your daughter and how you feel. If you can just write me a couple of sentences, and that'd be just so that you don't forget because you are so busy, so you don't forget by our next session, so we can really talk about those specific instances and maybe some of the underlying things that might be attributing to those. So,
Okay, we can do that.
all right, great. Well, thank you so much for coming in,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see